2 decades, you've turned to Illegal Curve Hockey as your destination for the latest news, audio, and analysis regarding the Winnipeg Jets, Manitoba Moose, and all things hockey in Manitoba. Join Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk, and Ezra Ginsburg as a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good afternoon, Winnipeg. Good afternoon, Manitoba. And for all those joining us live in the food court here at Cityplace, as well as online on all of our social media platforms, we say good afternoon, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, a special noon hour edition thereof, getting you ready for this evening's Winnipeg Jets New York Islanders contest. One final game for the Winnipeg Jets before they head off for the Four Nations Cup break. They'll be next in action 2 weeks from tomorrow night, the 22nd. But tonight, against the Islanders, the Winnipeg Jets look to continue their winning ways. 7 in a row they have won. They look to make it a perfect 8-for-8 this evening against the Islanders as they wrap up the pre-Four Nations Cup portion of their schedule. Along with Ezra Ginsburg, along with Dave Manouk, I am your host, Drew Mandel. A very monochromatic look for the three of us today. We did not do this, we did not coordinate this, but it's nice to see that we were all sort of in a navy state of mind, even if we were blending in with this great poster backdrop that we have live here at Cityplace. Nice to see you guys on this Friday afternoon.
Obviously, great to join you boys as well. Before we get into it, just great to be back here at Cityplace, surrounded by all of this great fast food.
Yes,
so
makes
just want
you
to
happy.
thanks Cityplace again for making all of my dreams come true.
Dancing Gabe is here as well.
Shout out for sure. And yeah, we like dark blue. That's what we like on IC, right? We like to rock the dark blue IC colors. So yeah, Drew, you just mentioned 7 wins in a row, guys. Like, it's incredible. It's almost impossible to find anything negative to talk about when it comes to the Jets, right? Mm-hmm. They've got such a big lead, not only in the Central Division, but they've got a nice little 7-point lead on the Edmonton Oilers in the Western Conference, not to mention the lead on the Washington Capitals for first overall in the NHL, right? So what better way to go into the Four Nations break than with an 8-game winning streak? And obviously, guys, the Islanders aren't going to be a pushover. We know they've won 11 of their last 14 games, which, by the way, nobody should be surprised about. They've done this the last 2 years, right? The record last year was something like 19-9-2 to end the season. So this is what the Islanders do, right? They start off poorly, and then they have a great second-half finish. So obviously, the Jets aren't afraid of the Islanders because they've just come off big wins over the Capitals and the Hurricanes, right, boys? But they're going to have their work cut out for them because they're a good defensive team.
Yeah, the New York Islanders are playing great hockey as of late. Ilya Sorokin, the Islanders goaltender, tremendous quality of goaltender. And in his last 8 games, here's just some quick numbers for him so you know what the Jets are up against. Of course, the Jets can counter that with Connor Hellebuyck, and you need not say much more about Connor Hellebuyck and his performance as of late, Dave. Ilya Sorokin of the Islanders in his last 8 games, 7-1, save percentage of .945 and a 1.57 goals against average.
Is that good, Dave?
Yeah. I don't think you need to be a hockey maven to understand that Sorokin is putting up some great numbers as of late.
And he's in net.
And he's in net, of course, tonight for the Islanders. The only asterisk I'll put on that is some of those victories have come against some teams that aren't great. The last sort of, but that said, they beat the Golden Knights earlier in this week. That was their most recent game that they beat.
Although the Golden Knights are on a slide.
They're struggling. Last Sunday is the only blemish that the Islanders have suffered.
They seemed to be
recently.
okay against the Devils last night, though. But
well, they're getting out of it at this point. Against the Panthers last Sunday, they lost 6-3. The Islanders did. That's their most recent blemish. But from the Jets' perspective, this is sort of a weird part of the schedule where they've played the last 4 games against the Eastern Conference, and tonight is the 5th game in a row against the East to wrap it all up. The Jets just have to say, you know what, whatever the other team is doing, and if they're playing good hockey, that's fine. Look at who the Jets have been beating. Everybody. It's that simple. Look look what they did against the Carolina Hurricanes team that is considered one of the upper echelon teams in the NHL on Tuesday night. Look what they did against the Washington Capitals, albeit a bit not a traditional Jets style of game last Saturday night, but look what they did against the Capitals and pulling off the victory. The Jets have to say, look, just focus on what we can control, and good things will likely occur for what based on our recent results, Dave.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. I mean, these guys are very focused. They're not losing their identity. They're not going to say, well, we're just going to move ahead and ignore the fact that, we're already in vacation mode. Or some guys, in the case of Connor Hellebuck and Cal Connor and Josh Morrissey and maybe Mark Scheifele.
Well, we'll talk about that coming up
I'm
here
aware.
in a little bit.
I'm not cutting myself off. I'm just saying that that there's guys who are going to be thinking about Four Nations. But the fact of the matter is this group has been very mature. And, one of the things Dylan DeMello said today, and you, of course, after we're done, you can go to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel and watch all the media availabilities from today. We talked to Mason Appleton, we talked to Dylan DeMello, and we talked to, of course, head coach Scott Arneal. But one of the things Dylan DeMello talked about during kind of that slide period, because he was asked about whether this stretch of games, the 7 in a row, is more impressive than what they were able to do, or just not just a stretch of 7 in a row, but just the stretch they've been on, Ezzy, since early December, is more impressive than what they were able to do to the start of the season. And both Mason Appleton and Dylan DeMello said it's probably a little more impressive now, just because early in the season, teams are kind of figuring things out, and there's a little bit more chaos. And now there's more structure, and yet this is what we're capable of doing. So I think these guys know what they're capable of. Dylan DeMello, like I said, talked about how difficult that stretch of hockey was. 15 days in a row, or 15 games in a row in a different city. How gassed they were mentally, how gassed they were physically. So from that perspective, you can see that this team the conditioning is right, and they're mentally and physically in a really good spot, in addition to, of course, in the standings.
Yeah, there's no question the way the Jets have been performing as of late. They are just, they continue to affirm and remind everybody that they are, certainly one of the top teams in this entire league. And you've seen it with their performance. I mean, look, they've had 7-game winning streaks 3 different times this year. I mean, if you'd said that they have had 5
which is only the 5th
streak,
time in the last 20 years that's happened.
I believe it. I mean, that's an incredible number to have that stretch of success, for 7 games in a row on 3 different occasions. It just speaks to how consistent they are and how impressive they've been all season long. I mean, it's a little bit at this point in time beating a dead horse in the repetitive nature of that. But, you can only, the praise is justified based on the performance on the ice, Ezzy.
Yeah, not for Jets fans. I mean, you can beat that dead horse all you want if you want to talk about all these wins that they're putting up. But I think, Dave mentions that, Dylan DeMello, his response today, talking about how this is more impressive than the wins at the beginning of the season. I think, Dave, a lot of that has to do with the fact that now the Jets are trying to hold a position. They're trying to maintain first overall in the division, the conference, the league, right? And, you look at the standings, and obviously you've got Calgary and Vancouver battling it out for that second wildcard spot, and we've talked about it. I mean, the importance of not just finishing first in the Central, but finishing first in the West, so that hopefully you're going to play Vancouver or Calgary as opposed to maybe Colorado, right?
Yeah.
We'll see how it shakes out. I mean, there's a lot of time to go before the playoffs start, but I mean, everything is going pretty well. Not pretty well. Things are going very well for the Jets right now. Doesn't mean they're a perfect hockey team.
Right.
Doesn't mean that they're not going to make any moves before the March 7 trade deadline. But when you have the second power play performing as good, if not better, than the first power play unit, and we know, guys, that the Jets power play is at a historic high right now.
And if you didn't know that, read Connor's article on illegalcurve.com.
Well, no, and Connor did a great job of breaking it down, and it really is impressive because, for years, the Jets' power play has been an issue, and yeah, you could have
now it's just an issue for the other teams.
Exactly, good point. And, with some of the play of the second line right now, I think that's been a welcome bonus for this team because obviously, guys, there were injuries with Vlad Nemesnikov, and then you had Lowry, Iafallo, and Ehlers playing together. But now Cole Perfetti, I think, is playing the best hockey of his career.
That's exactly what I was going to say to you, that Cole Perfetti, who's the guy who's certainly had the spotlight on him, throughout this season. Early in the year, at the beginning of the year, it was, okay, you need to see Cole Perfetti take a step up, and then he sort of just disappeared for a big chunk of time. But since then, since that famous sort of media availability where he said that he wants to, have a little bit more of an edge to his game. I'm paraphrasing in case there's any sensitive ears in the audience here.
Sure.
At
That's
Cityplace.
nice of you not to mention the word, because there are some kids around.
Yeah, I don't want to work
We
blue.
don't want to teach the kids some bad
We
words.
wear
right?
blue. We don't want to work blue when we're live on location here at Cityplace with broadcasting the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. But ever since then, you're just seeing to me, and granted it's a small sample size and you need to see it for longer, but you're seeing a completely different player. You're seeing a different player in how he approaches shift by shift and the impact he can have shift by shift, even if the puck isn't on his stick. He's going along those boards, and you talk about winning the board battles. And that's something that the Jets have been so good at this year, winning board battles, puck retrievals, getting sticks in lanes. And I know it sounds cliche-ish after we say it so many times in a row, but for somebody like Cole Perfetti, who's that aspect of his game was always maybe a bit of a drawback, to have that added to his toolkit really makes him that much more impactful.
Absolutely, and I think that line has adapted how they've played. I think you're seeing a line that's playing more of a direct style of hockey, right? We've seen them, how effective they can be. I always like to use the word triangle, right? When they're playing close together and they're feeding off of each other, they have the ability to make a lot of skilled plays in tight, and I think that that bodes well for the Jets going forward. Whether that means that the Jets are going to acquire a 2C or not remains to be seen. I think that's kind of, guys, the age-old question, right? Going back to 2017, 2018, right? You can just almost be guaranteed that here in this market in Winnipeg, Manitoba, we're going to be talking about whether the Jets are going to acquire a 2C, right? But there's no doubt, Drew, that Perfetti is playing the best hockey of not only this season, but I think of his career. When you can, it's not just the production, like you said, it's the way he's doing it. You can see he's playing a different style of hockey than he was playing in the beginning of the season. And yes, he has to be more difficult to play against, because you're not always going to be scoring beautiful goals off of the rush, right? Sometimes you're going to have to steal a puck. Sometimes you're going to have to take a puck off of somebody, right? And it's great to see, because let's be honest, he went through a lot of criticism earlier in the season, with a lot of people saying that the Jets should trade him or he should be demoted to the fourth line, and he stuck to it. And what does he have, 6 points in his last 8 games? Eight points in his last 6 games? Yeah. Sorry, Dave, I got it reversed. But, it bodes really well for the Jets, because right now you forget, right? Like, they're still without Adam Lowry and Morgan Barron. Obviously, the depth has filled in nicely. A guy like Parker Ford has filled in nicely on the fourth line. Rasmus Kupari doing a great job at 3C, right, Dave? But Perfetti, we've talked about at the beginning of the season, his health was going to be a key, but also he's got to produce, and he has. And
sorry, Dave, what I was going to say about Perfetti, because I want your thoughts on this one, is, for the longest time, Ehlers was really the only driver on that line. Mm-hmm. And if you're playing in the top 6 of any team, especially a team with Stanley Cup aspirations, you need more than one driver per line. Perfetti lately, I think, is taking steps in that direction. Obviously, he plays a different style than Nikolai Ehlers, and there's nobody on the Jets who sort of does the things that Nikolai Ehlers can do. Maybe Kyle Connor, obviously, but he does it in a bit of a different way. But if Perfetti is all of a sudden driving that line, and so you have Perfetti driving, you have Ehlers driving, and then you have the reliability of Vlad Nemesnikov, that goes a long way in sort of changing the calculus, I would say, about the Winnipeg Jets second line moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And look, it's been 6 games. It hasn't been 16 games. It hasn't been 26 games, so we're not going to anoint him anything yet. But it is a positive change. There's no question about it. And I think one of the key things that, as he just said, and one of the things that was mentioned when we were talking to the players today about the idea that they no longer have, that they're on the streak in the comparables between the beginning of the season and the end, was that they don't have Adam Lowry. Since this began, if you think about it, they've been, he got injured in that game against Utah.
Last time the Jets lost.
Yeah, January 20th, he got injured. And then, of course, Morgan Barron goes down unusually in that he demolishes Kirby Dach, but he's the one who has now been out, and he's out week to week. And as we, have already reported, it sounds like someone asked in the chat, I put a link to our conversation with Scott Arneal, because it doesn't sound like either of those guys are anytime soon. So, because we weren't sure. Week to week gives the team a certain amount of latitude. It should also mention for folks who weren't paying attention to our Twitter account earlier, that it will be Brad Lambert is coming to the lineup tonight. Parker Ford is out. So when asked why, Scott O'Neill said he just wanted to get him into a game. I'm sure the Ville-Heinola folks won't be too pleased about that, but regardless, that's just a lineup change.
I think we talked about that on Tuesday's post-game show.
We did.
Yeah, you mentioned that you thought that Lambert would get tonight's game because he's been sitting for so long, and you want him to get some, get a game in before the break.
Well, they're not gonna get a break. Lambert and Ford are gonna go down to the Moose anyways, and they'll play 6 games over the next week and a half. Or not even, maybe a week and a half. It's from between tomorrow and Monday, so 9 days. So
I was wondering about that. So on paper, they're for sure going to send them down to the Moose.
They're sending them down.
You think that they're going to send them down and play that number of games?
I could be wrong, but they're not both playing a ton. So I think there was a discussion point today. I think you send them down and you play them, and keep them in shape. And it's not like they've had this crazy season, right? The AHL is a lot different of a taskmaster than the NHL. And look, the AHL teams play 20 less games.
Right.
So, you don't have that same wear and tear on your body. I think it's an advantage to keep those guys in shape and playing hockey games.
And I think, guys, where the Jets are in the standings, and more so the fact that the Jets have 7 wins in a row, I think might have factored into this a little bit as well, right? Like, the Jets don't need to win this game. Like, obviously, they want to win this game, so I think they're
not desperate, is what
exactly.
You're saying.
So I think that they can maybe make a move that they wouldn't otherwise have made. Let's say if they'd lost 2 in a row, Dave, or lost 3 in a row or whatever, right? And I think, talking about Ville-Heinola, it goes back to what we've talked about all year long, guys, right? Like, the Jets are clearly favoring Logan Stanley. It's not like a rotation anymore.
No.
Logan Stanley is the Jets' third pair left side defenseman,
Andrew
right?
Gross.
Nice to see Andrew Gross.
Oh, yes.
Long time IC guest.
Yes. Anyway, keep going. You interrupted Ezzy, and then you broke up
and so getting back to the Brad Lambert coming into the lineup tonight versus the Islanders, great for Brad Lambert. Obviously, he hasn't been playing a lot.
No.
I think his last game was with the Moose probably over a week ago at this point, right, Dave?
Weekend,
So nice for him to get into the lineup, add a little bit of a speed element. I think Parker Ford has been a great story this year, right? Obviously the Moose are not having a great year, but Parker Ford was leading them in scoring. I'm not sure if he's still leading them in scoring. But regardless, he's having a good year for the Jets, and for the Moose. And when he's been up with the Jets and playing on a 4th-line role, he's been noticeable, right, guys? Like an energy guy. It's not like Parker Ford's popping in. He did pop in 1 goal, but it's not like he's popping in 2 goals every game, but he's been noticeable, and so good for him. And in terms of Ville-Heinola, it's not ideal that he's been a healthy scratch for this long. But again, what left is there to say about Heinola on the Jets, right? Like, it's just it's come down to, at this point, guys, he's not even the 7th defenseman, he's the 8th defenseman.
He might be behind Hayden Fleury probably in the depth chart,
right,
to your point there. And then if the Jets go out and acquire another defenseman at the deadline, which a lot of us think is likely going to happen, that makes him the 9th defenseman. And then you got to, and then you just keep going down. So you do wonder what his future is. And Jacob Stoller of Sportsnet.ca wrote a good article, I believe it was yesterday, sort of touching on that same topic. An article.
It's a valid question, right, Drew? Again, Ville-Heinola's young. He was just drafted in 2019. But you have to ask yourself, is his future in Winnipeg?
Hang on, Dave, go ahead. I want to hear what you say.
Well, no, the only thing I was going to say, though, that it's what's worth noting is you're not getting anything for him. He's a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick at best. So
he was a 1st-round pick.
He was, in fact. But at this point, when you're
in
terms of what
do you think he only gets that in return?
He was played
with his age.
Yeah, look,
I think he gets a little bit higher than that, Dave. I'm thinking
I could be
2nd or 3rd.
Oh,
I don't think. First of all, I don't think he's traded for a draft pick straight up if he gets traded. I think he's part of a package.
I agree, but my point, the point that we were discussing, kind of kicking around today in the Matt Frost Media Center, is there really is no urgency from a Jets perspective. His salary cap hit isn't significant, so if you do even acquire depth, once the trade deadline passes and you don't longer are limited to the 23-man roster, as long as you're cap compliant.
Right.
The fact of the matter is, you can keep him on the roster, and it's not ideal, it's not perfect, but at the same time, again, like I said, I'm just saying, we don't know what the offers are, we have no idea what the interest is, but I don't think his value is high, and so the fact of the matter is, if you want to can try and recoup something for a guy you put a lot of time and effort into.
You lose them on waivers like the Jets have been doing with defensemen over the years.
Clearly they're not going to do that this year. And again, like I said, depending on what happens next year,
right,
I mean, at the same time, remember, let's not forget that Billy Heinola came into the lineup 2 or 3 months behind everybody else. And sure, he's played some games, but he has not, again, he hasn't surpassed anyone. That's the problem. And again, and I will agree with from one of the things that Jacob said, they did put him in a negative position,
Putting
being
him on
his
the right side.
offside
Yeah.
with Logan Stanley. That wasn't a position for him to have a tremendous amount of success, so that was a problem for him. But at the same time, like I said, I just don't think the Jets are in, again, Drew, other than from a package perspective.
Yes.
You're not trading him for just a draft.
No, you're not. There's no reason to do that. But if a team wants him as part of that
Hold on, we got an offer. Drew and Billy Heinola for a 5th-round draft pick as per T. Konopoli.
Thank you.
And you know what?
You've overpaid in that
as
case.
I say as co-GMs,
Yeah.
sold.
Yeah. You guys
We're doing
can't-
that move.
You can't quite trade me that easily. I think I have a no move clause, but that's just me on the couches. That's my no move clause. We're live Friday afternoon. We're here at Cityplace in the food court. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. A special edition of Illegal Curve Hockey, getting you set for tonight's Winnipeg Jets New York Islanders game. 7 o'clock is the puck drop between the Jets and the Islanders. This, of course, the final game before the 2-week break for the Four Nations Cup. You mentioned Brad Lambert getting into the lineup for the Winnipeg Jets tonight. I think it's a smart decision at this point. Parker Ford has done exactly what you would expect Parker Ford to do. It was great that he got that goal in Boston. He goes out, he plays his 7 or 8 minutes a game. He throws his body around, he blocks his shot. He's an energy guy. There's not a lot of flash and dash to his game. And that's exactly what you would expect from a guy playing in that 4th line role. From Brad Lambert's perspective, you just want to, again, when you call him up, it's never an ideal situation that you call him up and then he has to sit for game after game after game after game as the 13th forward or the 14th forward. So now, when you got the break and everyone's about to vacate for a couple of weeks, you give him the opportunity to get into the lineup where, frankly, if he's playing on that Jets 4th line, which is where it seems like he is, and with last change, they should be able to get him some pretty soft matchups against bottom of the Islanders lineup that really isn't very good.
Can we before we get back to Brad Lambert and the Jets, can I just read to you guys the injuries
it's
that
crazy.
the Islanders,
It's
again,
wild.
I think if the Islanders make the playoffs, they probably lose in the first round, just like they did last year.
There's too many teams.
No, I'm just saying if they do, yeah, you're right. But I mean, let's be honest here. They are in the playoff race. Okay, these are the injuries the New York Islanders currently have. Matthew Barzal, heard of that guy? He's out day-to-day, or actually on injured reserve. Scott Mayfield, solid defenseman. Marcus Hoberg, who was their 3rd goalie to start the season. Simeon Varlamov hasn't played since November, by the way. Varlamov obviously is out. Ryan Pollock from Grandview, Manitoba.
Yep.
Noah Dobson, heard of him? Pretty good defenseman.
Apparently, I mean, I don't believe these reports, but apparently there's talk that he might be on the trade market. I don't really buy it, but it seems odd that you need to make that call, Dave?
No, it was my reminder because I knew I couldn't trust anybody in the chat or here at Cityplace to remind me to pay for my parking. So I set a reminder for myself to go off when my meter was about to expire.
Well, I was looking at my phone thinking that maybe I had like an alarm set at a very random time. And then I look over at Dave and he's doing this little thing on it with his apps over here on his phone. But I mean, it's just incredible. Like, again, the Jets should beat the Islanders tonight. On paper, the Jets are a far better team than the Islanders, but I think we got to give them credit. We have to give Patty Roy credit here.
And here he is. Let's talk to him right now.
maybe he'll jump on
He
with
usually
us.
wanders at some point during the next 35 minutes or so. The members of the Islanders.
Well, no, they did an optional this morning, and their media availability was at 10:45.
Okay, so they're done. They're not going to wander past us at this
Well,
point.
I did see Lou Lamoriello when I was strolling over, and
Did you say, Lou? Can you trade Brock Nelson? The Jets need him.
I was more excited that apparently a bunch of folks from Survivor are in Winnipeg, so because of that, I was fanboying about Survivor, and I
Do you
ignored Lou
still
Lamoriello.
watch Survivor
I do
regularly?
indeed. I do.
Really?
I do.
I'm impressed
And in
by
fact,
that.
now-
Drew, this year it's going to be Can You Survive Winnipeg's Downtown? So that's going to be pretty
And in fact, now I watched last night Beast Games.
Beast Games.
Yeah,
Is
Mr.
that
Beast.
is that a
On Prime.
Oh, okay.
It's
Sorry.
amazing, actually.
you-
Timmy knows. Producer Timmy knows what I'm talking about.
Well, I'm glad Timmy does because I certainly don't. But that's par for the course when it comes to us usually.
Drew's more of a Bachelor guy.
Yeah, the Golden Bachelor.
Golden Bachelor.
Yeah, that's I was actually auditioned for Golden Bachelor, but they said, "Sir, you're too old for that. You need to be a little bit younger."
Sir, you're too old. You do not have enough money. You're out.
In any event, that is the fun we have here with the Illegal Curve, special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show live at Cityplace here, broadcasting in the food court like we do every month.
I asked Tony D'Angelo to stop by, but I don't think he is.
No, he's probably not going to stop by as
texting
well.
the Islanders here.
His response was, how'd you get this number?
That's usually how it works for you. But we were talking about Lambert and his ability to sort of step in the lineup and hopefully do something good for himself, just so that he can sort of build upon that, whether he goes and plays for the Moose, or whatever, the rest of the next 25, 26 games have in store for him.
Well, you know what, for sure, and I think it's only going to help his confidence. The kid works his ass off, and again, like I said, we were at Hockey for All Center yesterday. I worked for an hour after practice, getting illegalcurve.com, no big deal, up to date with all the latest Jets and Moose news. But the fact of the matter is that while I was doing that, and I'm sitting. Shout out to the folks at the Highlander, who, by the way, set up a special table.
It's not the Highlander.
Oh, fine, not the Highlander.
Hockey for All Center. Yeah.
Because I knew it started with an H. Because they set up a table.
Thank you to the folks at St. James Civic Center.
Shout out West K. But no, it's funny they set up a table for me. Well, big thanks to the folks there in operations. Set up a table so I'd have somewhere to sit and do some work. But as I'm watching, Lambert is out there skating. He's the last guy on the ice as he's working on his shot, working on different things. And I will give him a kudos because I thought it was merited at. After practice, there was a kid and his mom, Lucas, was watching the practice with his mom, and he had a sign up against the glass. The whole time, not the whole time, but for a lot of the skate. And then the way the Jets room works is that they come off the bench, and he could have walked right into the Jets room and pretended like he didn't see the kid. But instead what he did is he actually went around the corner and walked the extra 50 meters, whatever it was, to the kid, signed an autograph, took a picture with him. Just a nice gesture to do for a young fan. And then it just so happened the mom and the kid were walking out, so I got a chance to talk to them a little bit afterwards, and they were very pleased. She was very pleased for her son.
Why do you want my autograph? I don't understand.
But that'll be it's little things like that. Players don't often necessarily get the credit that they deserve for doing small things like that. Just small gestures of humanity, which go a long way. And I'm sure will be a core memory for Lucas and his mom and everything else.
And the only reason I bring it up is because you're right, Drew. Most people wouldn't have seen it. And if I wasn't sitting there, it's not like Brad Lambert's going to put it out there. And so if I'm not sitting there, but it's not known. And
Dave M sees all.
Dave M does see all. That's true. But anyways, the getting to the most important thing is that he's worked hard. He continues to practice efficiently. And look, Scott Arneal kind of laughed about it. And again, you can watch that media availability from today after we're done this show, of course. But he talked about this idea of, he said, because originally it was like the idea was if you're going to call up a guy like Lambert, it's to be in that top six role.
Right.
So why are you going to do that? And he said, I just want to put him in there, give him a chance, give him some experience playing, board battles and that sort of thing. Like, as he says, maybe against weaker competition, he has some luck, gets a goal, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, it's a good opportunity for Brad Lambert to excel tonight against the Islanders.
Well, also, no pressure on him, right? Like, there's all the pressures on the Islanders, obviously, who are fighting for their playoff lives. But I think a great position for Brad Lambert to come in just based on the context of the last game. The Jets have won 7 in a row, everything like that.
And I think you reward a guy for, it's never easy to be, a healthy scratch. Right. Especially a young guy like Brad Lambert. And this has been it's been a trying year in the sense that, the Moose, haven't been very good. I mean, let's be honest.
That's fair.
The struggles with the Moose have been well documented. They can't really score. I'm sure Lambert himself is probably a little bit disappointed with how his season has gone. Bouncing back and forth, never really being able to break through that very difficult glass ceiling that is the Winnipeg Jets lineup on a regular basis. Especially after he had a pretty good training camp where he was one of the later demotions to the Moose, and people thought maybe he's going to break into that lineup. He hasn't had the chance to do it. So you throw him a little bit of a bone tonight. You let him go out there and say, just focus on the things you can control. You got 2 line mates who are going to be very good at doing all the dirty work things. That's what they do. That's what, they specialize in. David Gustafsson has shown he's very adept at that in his recent stint.
And he's looked really good, right?
Yeah.
Has he? So,
absolutely. I think, again, we always talk about, the opportunity that presents itself. Doesn't mean that guys always seize the opportunity, right? And David Gustafsson, obviously, on the 4th line has done that. Parker Ford has done that. Great story. So Brad Lambert, just because he has one good game, obviously doesn't mean that the Jets coaching staff is going to say, well, after the Four Nations tournament, Brad Lambert's got a guaranteed spot in our top 12.
Right.
It doesn't work like that, but it's just a good opportunity for him. Like Drew said, his goal at the beginning of the season was to stick with the Jets, right? Like, you ask Brad Lambert, and Davis talked to him more than anybody, right? Like, he wanted to stick in the Jets' top 12, top 13, whatever you want to call it. He wanted to be playing the significant games in the NHL this season, but he's
meaningful games.
Right, and so he's had to go back down to the AHL, work on his game. Obviously, like you said, Drew, the offensive totals haven't been there. A lot of people, have been asking Dave, because he obviously covers the Moose, like, what's going on with Brad Lambert? Well, it's not necessarily just Brad Lambert, right?
No.
Like, there's a lot of guys on the AHL roster that have struggled.
That's why I wonder how much benefit there is, at least moving forward. Forget about the next 2 weeks. Let's hold this thought and we'll talk about it after the break. But here's the question I wanted, just so you guys can mull it over. How much more benefit is there for a guy like Brad Lambert to go down and play with the Moose for the remainder of this season, given their struggles, given their depleted lineup? Where is he better off? Is he better off? I think I know your answer, Dave. Is he better off playing with a struggling Moose team, or is he better off being the 13th forward or the 14th forward and learning and practicing and playing against his, albeit maybe just in practice, but playing against NHL caliber competition rather than weaker AHL caliber competition? We'll talk about that after the break. We'll talk much more about the Jets and the Islanders when we come back as well. The Islanders special teams, they are woeful. We'll tell you just how bad they are. It's a Friday afternoon. It's a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on location in the food court at Cityplace. Don't go anywhere. More of this special broadcast coming your way.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. Cityplace is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make Cityplace your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit Cityplace at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, a special edition of the program coming to you live from Cityplace, downtown Winnipeg. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. Friday afternoon, the Jets and the Islanders. That's what we're all about this afternoon, getting you set for tonight's game between these two teams. Not what I would call a rivalry, given that they play each other twice a year, once at home, once on the road. Although when I was driving here to Cityplace, I did see somebody walking in downtown Winnipeg wearing a classic Mike Bossy Islanders jersey.
Love it.
It was a great one. I'm like, this is a big day for that guy. He only gets to wear that jersey out without people sort of glancing at him, once per year. So this is a big day for that gentleman who was walking here in downtown Winnipeg, right around Cityplace, sporting that classic Islanders logo.
Well, I'm sure your dad and your dad, Dave, talked about, like, I can definitely say my dad growing up, like, I heard a lot about Mike Bossy. Like, my dad would always just say he was the greatest goal scorer ever. We actually had him on back in the TSN 1290.
No.
Was it Red River?
It was Red River College.
Red River.
We had Mike, you're absolutely right. We had Mike Bossy on the program with us way back when.
That was a real treat.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a lot of years ago now, Mr. Ginsburg.
I mean, I don't know what his official goal total, what does he have, 600, something like that? Like, if you just look, just go on, for all you youngsters out there, go on Hockey DB and just search Mike Bossy and look at his goal totals. It's just incredible. He's obviously a legend.
Especially because, the thing with Mike Bossy, his career was cut short because of the back injury that plagued him for so many years. But he certainly was the most prolific goal scorer.
Yes.
I mean, in the same breath as the prolific goal scorers of his era, and was, of course, a driving force on those Islanders dynasties as well.
Absolutely. Brian Trottier, Clark Gillies, Denny Potvin, Billy Smith. Like, we all know the names from those. Nystrom, got to throw in Nystrom as well. Butch Goring.
Yeah.
We got to throw in Butch Goring.
He's here.
So, I mean, yeah, and I know, Drew, you want to get back to the Jets, but
That's okay.
that's why I just think it's so impressive, guys. Like, obviously, you guys know I'm a Devils fan, so the Islanders are kind of a rival of the Devils, but I just, I'm so impressed by how good the Islanders have been this year. Just scratching and clawing themselves back into playoff contention. Like, we read all the names, right, right, Dave?
Yeah.
I almost called you Dad, talking about our dads, but sorry about that.
If you can start calling Dave Dad from now on, I would totally be on
I am
board
in
with
charge
that.
of you, and you're
That's true. You do have power of attorney over him, so you might
I've
as well
said
call
some
you
really
Dad.
weird things to Dave over the years, but I'm sure Dave doesn't want me calling him Dad. That's going to cross a line.
Remember in elementary school, did you ever accidentally call your teacher Dad or Mom or anything like that? Sometimes you're just
No.
No, that never happened to you.
Not to me.
Oh,
Drew,
okay.
I'm not sure what your school experience was like, but it's a little bit different.
Come on.
Did your teacher try breastfeeding you, Drew? So we've got problems.
You guys, you throw me out under the bus. I'll tell you one thing about the Islanders that hasn't been good this year, and that's their special teams.
Although it is worth noting, it has been better over this stretch.
Yes,
I got that
fine.
information from Kelly Moore because, like you, I looked at the totality of their season, and it's been woeful.
But to Drew's point, though, if your penalty kill and your power play has been better over the last 10 to 15
no, the power
games,
play still. The power play is not. It's the penalty
even
kill.
if your penalty, I think the penalty kill's at 70%.
No, the penalty kill. So the power play is dead last in the NHL.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
32nd. The penalty
In fact, it's
kill.
so bad it might be 34th.
Yeah, the penalty kill, Dave, which apparently has been doing better as of late, has
still
climbed all the way to 31st in the NHL. So, without, I don't know that we need to plan the parade for their special teams.
No.
And that certainly should be an area that the Winnipeg Jets are going to try and exploit tonight.
Absolutely, there's no question about it. And the fact of the matter is that the Jets, so we've seen with this Jets team last year, right? When their penalty kill started to get better, because it was so woeful early in the season, they could never really get it to any significant, they couldn't make a dent on how bad it had been. That was the problem for them. So now, I think the Islanders are in a similar situation. And again, I'm not going to pretend like I'm any Islander expert. I happen to be talking to Kelly Moore. I said, Kelly, do you know if you looked at the numbers? And
So in the last 10 games, I guess it'll be the last 9 games for the Islanders, their penalty kill is third best in the NHL at 89%.
Yeah, so I'm just saying it's definitely improved over. And again, a lot of that is the goaltending.
Yes,
we know how good he has been. So I think that's a big driver of it for them. But again, I can't pretend to be any sort of expert. So I agree with you. Like, that's why I asked Kelly for the information, because to me, I was like, you looked at the number and I was like, well, it doesn't really sync with a team that is as hot as they are to have special teams that poor. But like I said,
it just tells you how bad their special teams must have been to this point in time. If they're running at an 89% clip over the last 9-10 games, and they're still as terrible as they are.
All you have to do is look at, for those Jets fans who aren't familiar with the Islanders lineup right now, because obviously they have lots of injuries, they brought in Tony DeAngelo, who's playing in Russia.
Yeah.
He decided to leave Russia and see if he could get an opportunity.
And by the way, is he 25 minutes in his first game?
25 minutes, and I think he was at like 22 minutes last game. So right now, the Islanders have Tony DeAngelo on their top power play unit. So this is a guy who wasn't even on the roster.
Yeah.
He wasn't even in the NHL to start the season. Obviously, a good offensive defenseman. And then you've got Scott Perunovich, who they just acquired from the Blues, like a week ago?
Dylan Sandberg's boy.
Right?
UMD Bulldogs.
Yeah, that's right. He's from Minnesota, right? So.
And his dad was the coach.
And he's on the second power play unit. So the point I'm trying to make here is, guys,
they're taking guys off the street and plugging them right into their lineup.
Exactly. You look at the Jets, and they've had Josh Morrissey and Neil Pionk as the anchors, the defensemen on the back end, and the Islanders have DeAngelo and Perunovich, two guys that weren't even on the roster. So that just shows you how many injuries they've had and how they've been able to integrate these players into the lineup. But also, more so, that probably explains why they've had so many struggles on the power play. They've just had so many of their good players, whether it's Matt Barzal or recently Noah Dobson out of the lineup. Like, these are key guys out there on the power play. And you've still got talented players like Bo Horvat and Anders Lee. We talked about Brock Nelson. A lot of Jets fans obviously are hoping that the War Road Minnesota product maybe is going to be Chevy's trade deadline acquisition. And obviously, guys, you know, we got to say that with a grain of salt, because there's going to be a lot of teams potentially after Brock Nelson, who's a pending UFA. We'll wait and see what happens. But the point is, the Jets can take advantage. That's a huge special teams advantage for the Jets tonight.
It's a huge special teams advantage, and I really think that the Jets are looking at this game. Forget about the talent in terms of your top six, but the Jets have to say our depth is what's going to be a key driver in this game, because it gets real thin real quick.
And that depth, by the way, now includes Matt Prefontaine.
Well, certainly after his challenge performance on Tuesday, the video challenges. But the Jets have to look and say the Islanders.
By the way, just to update everyone, because if you didn't see, we posted it on our Legal Curve Instagram, but Connor Hellebuck was told by the league that they got that wrong. So Matt Prefontaine should have an unblemished record when it comes.
So what you're speaking about is the game against Tampa Bay.
November 4th.
Right, back in November.
Dave, beside 6 of 7. Yeah.
So the Lightning came out to an early lead in that game, and the Jets challenged one of the Lightning goals.
Remember who scored it? From Strathclyde, Manitoba.
Connor Geeky, yes. I was at that game with my kids.
And it was so obvious. I was at that game in the crowd too, and we're sitting there. Yeah. My sister and I are at the game, and we're looking at it, and we're saying, like, how is this goal counting?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even subtle. Like,
No.
it was, he literally pushed we don't even have to go over this again, Drew.
But what Dave is
it was
saying,
obvious goalie interference.
Right. And so what Dave is saying is that the league contacted Connor Hellebuck and said, our apologies, that should have been declared goaltender interference, which was the only blemish on Matt Prefontaine, the Jets video coach's record in terms of challenges so far.
Well, and it's interesting, right? Because Connor Hellebuck I went back and I listened. I mean, at the time, it was notable the way he spoke, right? He said, look, I'm a family man. I'm not going to give my time and energy, because things that should be black and white are not black and white. There's too much gray, and it shouldn't be that way for the goaltender to not understand it. Obviously, there's going to be some human element to this, but there has to be some consistency in the calls. And one of the things he said is, since that time, since November 4th, he's not just in Jets games, but across the league, he's been watching goaltender interference, and it makes sense. When he watches them, he's like, okay, that's a play that makes sense. So for the league to acknowledge they made a mistake, I don't know if they would want him to put that out there.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that he feels now,
the same thing.
But the fact of the matter is that he now understands. He is the most important goaltender in the league, and you kind of don't want him kind of besmirching the process. And so for him now to be on board and happy with it, and for the record, it's not about making Connor Hellebuck happy, so you have to just give him what he wants.
No.
But he wants to be able to say, okay, it's black and white. I understand exactly how it looks, and does the rest of the league. And the other thing I thought that was interesting to take away, because as we know, Connor Hellebuck isn't on the bench. Eric Comrie's on the bench because he's like having like a little shot in the arm for the players, and we saw that with the mic'd up thing. But Connor Hellebuck watches the games from the video room with the coaches. So it's actually interesting that he's in there with Matt Prefontaine, kind of having a good time and trying to figure out what exactly is going on with these calls. So I just thought it's kind of interesting to hear kind of that insight that Connor Hellebuck watches it with, Matt Prefontaine and the other folks in the Jets video team, I should say, and trying to figure out these things. So I'm sure it's probably helpful to have a guy with his pedigree, saying, you know what, I think that is goaltender interference.
Yeah, it's certainly, now that it's a little bit clearer as to what's going on, that's a separate issue altogether that we'll deal with. But
someone's feeding us bread. Awesome.
Yeah, somebody's throwing bagels at us, which is...
well, I just looked over and I saw, like...
It's okay. We don't need to get into it.
Yeah.
Forget it. We'll go
I
back
am a little bit peckish, so maybe I'll have a bite.
I'm not so sure you want to eat that piece of bread.
Yeah. In any event, the Jets, of course, tonight against the New York Islanders, and you're right. It was, these goaltender interference, is becoming a little bit clearer as to what it actually means, vis-a-vis the calls and everything else along those lines. But tonight's contest against the Islanders, I mean, we know the areas of opportunity for the Winnipeg Jets. We know the area of opportunity when it comes to the special teams battle, where the Jets are, the best historic, on pace to be the best power play of all time against the penalty kill that has been way better as of late, but has been terrible for the vast majority of the year. We know the depth that the Jets can throw at the New York Islanders. Really 1 through 12, you would take the Jets forward group over the Islanders forward group. I mean, I know, David, Captain Obvious and all that. But that's why if you're the Jets, you just play the same game you played against Carolina. You play the same game that you played against Boston. You play the same game that you played against Montreal.
Although this game, Scott O'Neill says, is going to look a lot more like a game against the Kings than it will against the Islanders. And Mason Appleton has, when asked today to describe the Islanders, because Jets have not had, Kelly Moore said, I don't know what their record is in the last 9 against the Islanders. It's not good.
Well, I went back. They beat them on home ice last year.
Sure.
Timmy and I, before the show started, producer Tim, we were having that conversation about it seems like the Islanders have often had the Jets' number.
Yeah, I was just going to say that one of the things when Mason Appleton said is it's almost like they play a boring game, as they want to lull you into getting frustrated to get out of your structure,
right,
so they can take advantage. And that's one of the things he said is the key to not falling into that trap.
I think the Jets are also going to feed off the opportunity. I know it's the last game before the break, and everybody's got their vacations planned. Those who aren't involved in the Four Nations Cup, and they're probably heading out somewhere warm, as of tomorrow or this weekend. But I think that the players, 7 in a row is hugely impressive. We know that. But it would, I think, leave a little bit of a sour taste in their mouth to end the pre-Four Nations Cup portion of the schedule with a loss on home ice. So I think you want to make it 8 in a row. You want to put on a good performance for your home fans like you did on Tuesday against the Hurricanes. And it certainly isn't for lack of rest that the Winnipeg Jets should be able to get out to a good start in tonight's contest.
Drew, basically what you're saying is it wouldn't hurt the Jets whatsoever if they lost the game because of the cushion they have.
Right.
But they obviously want to win, go into the break having won 8 games in a row.
These are games that they've, for the most part, especially on home ice, have won this year.
Absolutely. They're incredible at home. We know that. They have the best home record in the league. And to me, guys, I think to Dave's point about what kind of game to expect, I don't necessarily know, Dave, that this is going to be like a 5-4 game. Like, I would think this is going to be more of a 3-2, 4-2 type of game. Yeah. And this Islanders team, the thing that always stands up to me about this iteration of the Islanders, like, this is a veteran, like, this is a team that they know what it takes to win in the regular season, at least. Yeah. They haven't had the success, but whether you're talking about Brock Nelson or Anders Lee or Bo Horvat or even Tony DeAngelo has been around the NHL for a long time. This is a veteran team, Ilya Sorokin, right? Like, it's not a flashy team, and you're not going to find anybody in the top 10 or anything. No, they don't. No, but they're a good defensive team, and like I always look at that third line. Remember, it always used to be the fourth line, which was Cal Clutterbuck, Casey Cizikas, and Matt Martin. But that third line now with J.G. Pajot, who's having a decent year. He's always been a player I've admired. And then Simon Holmstrom, who was drafted, I think, 3 or 4 after Ville Heinola in the 2019 draft. He's having a breakout season with 14 goals, right? So there is a decent...
But you look at that fourth line. I mean, you look at that fourth line, with all due respect.
You're not a Mark Gatcomb fan, Drew?
I'm not a big Mark Gatcomb guy. I'm not a big Kyle McLean
guy. Sounds
guy.
like a gun, like a Gatcomb.
Well,
you might want to be careful. They could be walking through here, Drew, and punch you in the face.
They might very well. That's the risk we take for bringing this analysis to our audience here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. But I mean, that that is an opportunity for the Winnipeg Jets, especially
that's why I said
with
for
Lambert.
And you get those matches that you want. And to the point that as he made, they don't score. They're the 27th overall. 27th least, I should say, goals for fewest goals in the NHL. So, and the other thing you could also point to, and I know it's not a huge thing, but there's a certain element of pride that the Jets have been the first team to 50 points, the first team to 60 points. And if they win tonight, the first team or even get a point as they're the first team in the NHL to 80 points. They continue, and if they score a few more goals than average, they could get to 200. They'll be the first team to 200 goals in the NHL. So this team there's not a lot on the line in that sense.
They only got to score 2 goals to get to 200.
Yeah, it was 198. I wasn't sure if it was 198 or 197.
I'm going to Ginsburg guarantee that the Jets get to 200 goals tonight.
Oh, there you go. Okay, well, fair enough. But
So, as you're saying, it's not going to be a 1-0 game.
I don't think so. I think
1-0 final.
I think it'll be low. Like, that's why I'm thinking 4-2. 4-2 Jets is my prediction.
Okay,
That's what I'm feeling tonight.
There you go.
Maybe 5-2, but I'm going to stick with 4-2.
We call that the kiss of death as per usual here on the program. But, the Jets just have to have that right mindset. They just have to have that right, and they've had it. I mean, and I know that it's easier said than done, but you look at the matchups and you say, okay, these are matchups that we have the advantage on. And you look at where the Jets have been successful. And Coach John Goins was on Daily Faceoff yesterday, and if you missed that, he's terrific. And I mean, he's a good friend of our program. We've had him on our show multiple times. And you go watch it. It's available on illegalcurve.com. You can go watch it there. But he just showed all the small things that the Winnipeg Jets do well.
Yeah.
And
is he a Blink-182 fan too?
Thank you. That was good. And they do them in the offensive zone, and they do them in the defensive zone. So their game is just so connected, and it looks the way it's supposed to look. Game in and game out. There's a strategy, there's an approach, there's a tactic that they follow. And, again, we talked about this last Saturday. Somebody in Washington, basically, somebody who should know better but didn't know better, made the point that, or tried to make the point to Scott Arniel that you're a one-dimensional team, and that one dimension is Connor Hellebuck. And nothing could be further from the truth when it comes to the Winnipeg Jets this year. And I think they always relish that opportunity to continue to show that to people that, Connor Hellebuck is the backbone, but we also have all these other...
Well, that was the point from John,
The
right?
Jets are the furthest thing from one-dimensional. Dave made a good point on our post-game show. That's going back to the Washington game, but if that one dimension is winning, then they're doing a pretty good job. And so they're not a one-dimensional team. Obviously, they're very reliant on Connor Hellebuck's excellent goaltending. But you could literally say that, guys, about every single hockey team who has a good goalie, right, and is winning. So yes, they're not going to apologize, like Dave M says, for having the best goalie in the world. But they're not a one-dimensional team whatsoever. And I think they've proven whether it's Adam Lowry who's out of the lineup, whether it's maybe Mason Appleton out of the lineup, or Vladislav Nemesnikov out of the lineup. The Jets have the depth to withstand those types of injuries, and they just continue winning, right? Like, guys, they're undefeated since Adam Lowry's out of the lineup. This is their heart and soul captain who's out of the lineup. And obviously, guys, you would say that, Adam Lowry's not your top offensive player, but the reality is he is so much more than just a captain. Like, he does, whether it's on the penalty kill or whether it's with his physicality, or if he has to drop the gloves, even though there's not a lot of fighting in the NHL anymore. But the reality is he is a very important cog in the Jets machine. So I think it is impressive that the Jets continue to win without Lowry, even without Morgan Barron. Let's not minimize. Morgan Barron has been in the lineup for the majority of the season for the Jets. He's been a good fourth line guy. So all I'm trying to say here is, I think at this point, if people aren't giving the Jets respect, that's their choice. And obviously the Jets have to prove it in the playoffs. But I mean, 3 7-game winning streaks this year in the first 55 games, like that's crazy. Like, they're the best team in the league. So whether you want to give them respect or not, I don't think they care. They're just going to keep winning.
And one of the other things that's worth noting is that every team is having slides, right? Vegas right now is in a slide. I think they won 3 of the last 10 or 3 of the last 13. It was a big number.
They've been struggling as of late. New Jersey's been struggling as of late.
Well, if you look again, like as he made that observation, like the Jets have a big gap between themselves and everyone else. And so, of course, that's one of the things, except for obviously the Washington Capitals.
It's almost scary because the Jets have never... You go back, guys, even to that 2017-18 season when they were battling Nashville for the President's Trophy.
Yeah.
The Jets have never been in this position before in 2.0 history, or 1.0 history for that matter, Dave, where the Jets have had this type of cushion 55, 56 games into the season.
Well, and to me, though, as the biggest thing is that you're not seeing complacency slide into their game. That is the element. That's why Scott Arniel deserves a lot of credit, and the players too, of course, because it would be easy for them to take a night off. It'd be easy for them. And again, I'm not saying they're playing perfect hockey games. They're clearly not, but they're playing pretty good hockey games.
And not a lot of criticism.
Yeah, there isn't. And again, obviously, like on individual plays, guys can make mistakes, and sometimes it ends up in the back of your net. And we pointed out if we do, and it's not just to find something to complain about, but it's just observations we make watching these games and analyzing these games. But I will say, like I said, from playing their worst game of the season back in Utah on January 20th to February 7th, which is, whatever that is. I don't know exactly with leap years.
17 days.
Yeah, well, because there's only 28 days, of course, in Feb. But the fact of the matter is that if you look at that sort of schedule and you look at would have expected at some point for the team, especially without Lowry and Morgan Barron, who've been playing much better, you would expect them to have taken the foot off the gas. They haven't done that, and I don't expect them to do it tonight, and we'll see what happens. It should be a very good hockey game. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets, look, they get full marks. I mean, the truth is, you're at game 56 tonight. So after tonight, you got about a third of the season to go, starting when they come back on the 22nd of February to face the St. Louis Blues. You go 500. That's which would be a poor record for the Winnipeg Jets based on how they've been so far this year. You're still going to be at 106 points in the regular season.
This team's finishing with 100.
That might be enough to still win the Central.
Right. Well, I mean, that's
maybe not
it.
win the Western Conference, but you'd still win the Central. And that's why, guys,
if you're Edmonton or you're Dallas, who have both been playing, or even Minnesota, who've both been playing some pretty good hockey. Mm-hmm. And not only have you not been able to gain ground on the Jets, but in fact, you've lost ground on the Jets.
Dallas was matching the Jets win for win.
I know.
Until they lost just recently. But the fact of the matter is, Dallas Stars had matched the Jets every win, and they weren't. Obviously, they surpassed Minnesota. Colorado's been middling a little bit. But the fact of the matter is, you're looking at this Jets team, and I put the stat up after the win, which it might take me a second to find it. But the fact of the matter is, this Jets team has won. Okay, here we go. So they got their 38th win of the season against the Carolina Hurricanes the other night in Game 55. In 17-18, which everyone would acknowledge was the best season, ever. Well, for the Jets at least. Yeah. They got win 38 in Game 64.
So 10 extra games, 9
extra games. And in last year, it came in Game 59. Now, the other teams, they lost more games in overtime and shootouts, whatever it was. So the points kind of matched up. But I'm just saying that it's just amazing to think to achieve your 38th win in your 55th game when the best season we've ever seen this Jet team play in 17-18, with all due respect to last year, they ended up getting that in Game 64.
Good times for the Winnipeg Jets. They'll see if they can keep it going tonight against the New York Islanders. 7 o'clock is the puck drop in downtown Winnipeg. Of course, here at Cityplace, everything will be open for all your pregame needs. Wherever your plans are before the game and after the game, Cityplace is your destination downtown for everything you need regarding the Winnipeg Jets. After the game, we'll be back with the Illegal Curve post-game show. That'll be here on our YouTube channel. So if you're wondering, if this is your first introduction to us here at Cityplace, and you're like, I like those guys, I want to hear more from them, all you need to do is you either Google Illegal Curve Hockey, that's pretty easy, or you can scan this QR code on the poster that's right behind us over here, and that way you can find more about us. We'll be back tonight at 9:40 p.m. for the Illegal Curve post-game show, and then tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, talking about tonight's game, talking about the last third of the season, getting you set for the 2-week break, everything along those lines. So 3 Illegal Curve broadcasts in the span of 21 hours. So a busy time for us, but we love to do it, and we love that you are going to be tuning in and watching us just the same.
And great times here this afternoon at Cityplace. Obviously, always love seeing producer Timmy. That's the real reason I come here, guys.
Right.
It's not for you two, it's to see Tim. But we also have to mention that there's going to be a special buffet at 9:30 a.m. on the Saturday Illegal Curve Hockey Show. So stick in for that. If you're hungry, come get that buffet at 9:30 a.m.
That buffet being from Kenny Weeb is what Ezzy's saying.
Correct.
Ken's going to be our guest on tomorrow morning's Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Kevin Woodley as well to talk about goaltending in hour number 2. So lots to come. Keep it locked to illegalcurve.com. Keep it locked to our YouTube channel. And of course, later on tonight, after the Jets and the Islanders, the Illegal Curve post-game show. All day long, though, the fun is to be had here at Cityplace.
And shout out to Dancy Gabe for watching the whole show. go.
Gabe,
Thank you,
always.
Gabe.
Thank you, Gabe. He got the fist bump.
Gabe's going to be bringing it tonight.
As he always does.
I love that hoodie that
That's
Gabe's
a
wearing.
classic
That
hoodie, eh?
classic Winnipeg Jets logo. Love the color.
Exactly. That's one of the new ones. I think Gabe said it was a Christmas gift, right? Yeah. There you go. Gabe's giving me the thumbs up for the Christmas gift. Terrific day this afternoon here at Cityplace. We thank everybody for joining us. Producer Tim, of course, doing the great job making us sound as good as we do. It's always fun to be here at Cityplace. Ezzy, what's going to be for lunch? I know that you've been keeping an eye. You've been looking at your options. Quickly, have you decided on one thing, or are you just going for the smorgasbord and going from shop to shop to shop to shop?
I'll be visiting the Golden Arches. Let's just put it that way. I'll be probably having a double Mac attack.
Oh boy! And then following that up with something else that has the word attack in it entirely. Big thanks to everybody for joining us. This has been a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. For Dave Minuk, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. We'll see you later tonight, 9:40 p.m. or so, for the Illegal Curve post-game show. Big thanks to everybody for joining us today at Cityplace, the food court here in downtown Winnipeg.